What's up, and welcome back to Nowstalgia Pod, giving you your weekly look at what's going on in pop culture. My name is Pat Sheehan with my co-host, Dave Martin Swagger. Dave, what's going on, man?
Golden Globe nominations are out, and that's all I got on that. But how you doing, Pat?
Moving on to our next topic. I'm good, man. Golden Globes, so if you want to check our opinions on it, I think we both sent out a tweet pretty much describing our thought process on the matter, which is pretty much we don't care. So follow us, though, especially Dave, at Martin Swagger, SWAGR, and myself, Shooting World Peace, as well as the podcast on Twitter at Nowstalgia Pod, and also go to soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod to listen to the podcast any way that you enjoy, especially on Spotify. Give us that follow on there. We got a pretty packed show today, Dave. You're going to be talking about a couple of movies. I made it to see a couple of movies as well, a couple of albums. But unfortunately, we're starting off today with a very sad topic. Juice WRLD, up-and-coming rapper, dead at age 21. Had a medical emergency at Chicago International Airport, and
going home.
Had a seizure, and that was it. Dave, give me your initial reaction, just your overall thoughts on the matter.
Yeah, obviously very sad. Like you said, only 21. Juice WRLD definitely had a lot more to give to the music community. That goes without saying. And, obviously just a big shock coming out of nowhere. It's not like he was sick or in poor health or anything. But on the other hand, once you think about it for a second, someone who openly, very candidly discussed his drug abuse and demons, it's not entirely unexpected. And fortunately, it's just another sad reminder that this is something that's very pervasive just in the world in general, but certainly in the music industry, just, abuse of prescription drugs and lean and all that. And, as far as what Juice WRLD represented in music, he's kind of the last big titan for his kind of wave, the SoundCloud rap, the blending of genres, to go down. Lil Peep 2017, X murdered last year, and now Juice WRLD going out the same similar way to Peep. It's very, very sad, and kind of just leaves you thinking about what could have been. But what was your reaction?
When you text me about it, I mostly was just shocked and sad. It feels like we've been talking about this way too often, and especially with him and his peers. We had just been talking about Death Race for Love earlier this year. And before that, Future and Juice WRLD last year. It's he's been up and coming. Obviously a lot of potential there. And, for, like you said, a genre like SoundCloud rap, where I think the variance in quality of the artist there is pretty stark. He definitely rose to the top, and to see this kind of talent just gone is sad. And it feels like it happens once a year, if not more now, which is just also, probably par for the course, but also like it's still a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, of course, a similar way Mac Miller went out, and of course ASAP Yams, really the first notable one several years ago now. And even French Montana right now has been in the hospital having a lot of medical issues. Don't know exactly why, but you can connect the dots with the way he's lived his life. And it's just, you just hope one day things will get to a different point. You listen to people like ASAP Ferg or Smoke Perp, whoever it might be, just talk about how they have gotten off that kind of lifestyle and how it wasn't good. And it seems like everyone knows it's not good. But then on the other hand, you have people like Juice and even people that are not nearly as celebrated, like Lil Pump, just kind of doing their thing. I just hope people can see the lesson, because it's just really sad. And, speaking to the music again, just where a lot of Juice WRLD's peers, their talent in like the genre blending was like more theoretical, more potential laden. Juice WRLD had hit records. He had lots of really good songs on top of having a lot more potential, right? And that's honestly what I think is really going to suck, because he had legions of fans that really connected with him. I mean, there's a famous video from Bronny James, his travel team, all singing the words to, I believe, Robbery a cappella. Like, the kids fucking love Juice WRLD, and it's just really sad, you know. I mean, the kids like X too, and thoughts about X aside, you know, it's just another one gone. It's just really, really unfortunate.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a tragedy, and I'm sure people will be listening to Juice WRLD to honor him, but also for a while, because certainly his influence was strong, even for the short period of time that he was in the game. Unfortunately, you know, there's never like a good way to move on from this, but maybe talking about another up and coming young rapper might be a good way to honor him, and that's Roddy Ricch. So Roddy Ricch dropped the first mixtape back in 2017. Feed the Streets.
Yes, sir.
Followed that up the next year with Feed the Streets 2, and it was his first album proper with Please Excuse Me for Being Antisocial.
Good title. I like this title.
Yeah, and I think it gives off an interesting vibe to who Roddy Ricch is as an artist. Kind of, you know, not being super familiar, I think I knew like maybe one or two of his songs. Like, I think Die Young was a song I was aware of. I didn't really know what to expect from this, and this was a lot more like soulful, like stripped back, like piano type jams than I expected. But I thought it landed pretty well. I think there were some songs that were a bit cringeworthy. If I had to maybe describe them, but
there's a Harambe bar on here. Didn't need that.
Yeah. Also, man, what was the song? I think it was like Thick something, or man, it was Backseat. That's what it was.
With dollar sign.
Yeah, that song was a tough listen, but there's still, I think, some good things to like on here. How did you feel about his first real album?
Yeah, going in, I had only really attached myself to a bunch of the singles, like the Feed the Streets projects. Every Season and Die Young were the two songs kind of took him off real fast. I think it was Odell Beckham posted a video of his with, I think, Die Young on the audio, and that's really what kind of set it off and made the XSL freshman list this year. We kind of expected that, called that one, and just, you know, judging off those first two big hits, like Die Young truly is a huge record. Like, there's videos of him performing that overseas where the crowd sings literally the entire song. Like, it really is a massive song. And then before this album comes out, we have Racks in the Middle, Nipsey Hussle featuring Roddy Ricch, two LA guys. That song is since Grammy nominated. Great song. Then later in the year, we have the DJ Mustard album, and off that we have Ballin', the best song on that album, also Grammy nominated. So really just becoming a star really fast. I believe he's only 21 years old. And then we get this album, and yeah, like you said, I think it's kind of speaks to the vibe you get from Racks in the Middle, to be honest, where, I mean, like, he ends this on War Ready, or War Baby, sorry, with like a chorus, right? Like a soul chorus. Mm-hmm. And it's good because I think the appeal of Roddy Ricch the whole time has been that he's someone who is in that singy, rappy mold, but he's still really good at conveying his emotions and kind of bringing that like street pain. He's kind of like West Coast A Boogie with more lyrics. And he kind of reminds me of like Little Durk, but way better. So I'm a big fan of this. And I think overall this album, it could have been a little shorter, but overall, I think most of these songs are pretty darn good. And it starts off really great with Intro and then The Box. So I enjoyed this a lot.
Yeah, I really was surprised in a good way with the overall sound of this album. Like the song PETA, I really liked. It has those freaking flutes in it that just like, I feel like take it to the next level. Yeah, just a lot more soulful. And I thought a lot of the features on here were pretty good too. Like, I thought Gonna Start With Me was pretty good. I mean, the dollar sign song aside, I thought A Boogie was pretty good on Tiptoe.
Yep.
Yeah, and I don't know. I thought there's a lot to like here. I think there's still a lot of room to grow for this young rapper, but definitely has the time to grow. So a lot of very promising stuff. Maybe work on some of the bars, but
Yeah,
overall not bad. I mean, what rapper doesn't have cringeworthy bars at some point, right?
it's just statistics, you know.
Yeah, just part of the game. Moving on from Roddy Ricch though to someone who's equally as young, Camila Cabello, Romance. I mean, we were talking Camila last year with debut album since leaving Fifth Harmony, which crazy that she was in Fifth Harmony and then 21 releasing her first album. Like she's been around for a while and still very young.
She was out the door with Fifth Harmony for a while, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that first album, Camila, I think that was a bit of a surprise, like in a good way. I think it kind of turned some heads about the kind of talent, because again, usually what happens when groups break up is they feel artistically reined in. We'll probably see more of that with Harry Styles this coming Friday, but she actually, showed us, I think, a lot of other sides that just weren't part of being in a group of five, pop group of five. And obviously Havana was a massive juggernaut song released a few months before the album, but I mean, that's got like over 1 billion views on YouTube at this point. Massive song. And even if it's like, I think it's a much more conventional song than people think. People think, oh, here's dipping into the Cuban roots and bringing Spanish stuff to the mainstream US. I don't know if it's quite that profound, but it's a banger song, and that's good enough for me, right?
Absolutely.
And honestly, I was excited for this follow-up just because I was really high on that album, and other songs like in the Dark and Into It, lots of cool album cuts on that. But leading up to the second one, Romance, which, I mean, the title was only out for a few months, and we didn't know these were lead-up singles until a while after they came out. And it was like, I just did not have the same level of anticipation for this album. And I think part of that was the lead single this time is Senorita with Shawn Mendes, her now boyfriend. And I just don't like Senorita at all. So I was really not excited. Yeah.
You don't like Senorita?
I think it's very bland.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pop song. Shawn Mendes, man. It's what you get from Shawn Mendes.
Right. I guess the other thing, too, it's like they were friends for so long that I just refused to believe they are actually dating, and now they're actually dating. It's like, enough already. When you perform this song, just please kiss. Everyone's tired of the anxiety.
Camila, I think, continues on this album to do what you talked about in that first album, which is, I think, showing a little bit more of her range in this. There's some very interesting production choices in some of these songs, like the second track, Living Proof. I don't even really know how to describe the beginning. It's like there's a tape being played in reverse, and then it comes in with all these different clicks to kind of create the beat in a way around it, and it's very I don't know, experimental almost in a way, not something I would have ever expected on a Camila album. And I think it's successful in terms of crafting a song to varying degrees, but still, I give her props for trying. And then she kind of goes all over the map, right? She still got some of the bangers on here. My Oh My with DaBaby, which when he comes in with the "Let's go," I was like, yes, DaBaby is fucking killing it this year.
He's on the Quavo 2017 run. Every feature he can possibly do, just securing all the bags, but also doing a really good job.
Yep, he's killing it.
Fun to see.
But then you have Liar, which kind of calls back to that Havana vibe, the Cuban Hispanic type feel to it. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have a song like First Man, which is a ballad song about her father, fairly generic, father-daughter song, I feel like, but still, you see her trying to reach different depths of her artistry, which I think is great. But again, I think it's done to varying effects on this album, but still, when she wants to crank out a banger, she can crank out a banger.
Yeah. Yeah, I think creatively this is kind of more of the same. She doesn't really take that many risks. It's kind of doing a lot of the same stuff from the Havana playbook, and then like the switch up to the slow stuff. But it's not anything we haven't really seen her do before, and that's okay if the songwriting is a little better. But I think ultimately the songwriting is so kind of singular focused on just being fucking super in love with Shawn Mendes, and everything leading up to that, just even more top level, just love and adoration. It's just when it's that focused on that theme, the writing hasn't really elevated it. So I didn't like this as much as the first album, but I think there's really good moments where I'm like, this is the edge I want to see more of. Songs like "Cry for Me," just kind of a different vocal delivery, but also a much different beat. And even "My Oh My," with Quavo with the baby aside, that's a Frank Dukes beat, and hearing her do that is really cool. But yeah, like Liars again, that's the Havana playbook, but not quite to the same level, And this is fine. I just wish there was a little more edge or a little more attempt to raise the ceiling on this one. I just don't think it gets there.
Yeah, it's funny because outside of My Oh My, I think the best song that she's released, or best track she's been on in this month, has been on the Casey Musgraves Christmas album, where her and Casey Musgraves sing "Rock Around the Christmas Tree" together. So, maybe not her best showing, but I think there's still a lot here to like. We're definitely going to put My Oh My on the playlist. If it's not already on there, it might be. But there's some. I still think Camila is a artist to be watching, because she seems to only be starting to figure it out. And I mean, when you're in a relationship with Shawn Mendes, can you blame her for not writing about anything else? He's very dreamy, dude.
Certainly not. Also, Senorita already has over 1 billion streams in Spotify. It's been out like 5 months or something like that. Wild. Yeah, it says she's the number 3 artist on Spotify right now at 56 million listeners. Surely that'll go to number 1 next month once this album's counted. So
no doubt.
Megastar, no doubt.
Megastar. Why don't we talk some TV real quick before we jump into all the movies we got? And actually, I got a DNW here, Dave, because I did not watch Silicon Valley this season. Maybe that speaks to just like the state of the show in general. This was one of the first shows we ever talked about on Nowstalgia Pod when we started off. I think it was at that point in its second or third season, back in 2016. I think
third season, yeah.
And this has been a show we've rode for, and to be honest, I just did not feel compelled or interested to jump into this last season with, I think, like the middling results of the prior season, where you really missed the presence of TJ Miller, and I think the show kind of struggled to find its groove. Did that continue in this season? Did I make a mistake in not watching?
I'd say no. I mean, we don't have to get too granular into the actual plot for this final season. I kind of want to more just reflect on like what Silicon Valley did and didn't do right all along, and like what its legacy is. Because, as you said, I think once TJ Miller left the show, and he certainly, the team was certainly in their right to get rid of him, his actions on set and all that, Mike Judge and crew. But the show's never able to replace that energy that he brought, that dynamic. And as we watch the past few seasons, you realize that Silicon Valley like just never was able to find a role for Monica, which was always unfortunate because she should have represented the marginalized place of women in tech. And instead she was a marginalized woman on a show about tech. So that was always very unfortunate. She's always felt very hamstrung to the show. Along those same lines, characters like Big Head, Jin Yang, characters that have amazing moments, hilarious stuff, just kind of seemed like they were just on the show because to be on the show, everything just became much more contrived with the storylines, and ultimately also very predictable. How things would go right and go wrong for Richard and Gavin, and you kind of would understand ahead of time where they were going to take these arcs, and they would kind of end exactly where you expected them to. And that just, I think, is a little disappointing. The show just started to spin its wheels. That being said, well, it never became like a transcendent comedy the way Veep did. I think there's still a lot to like about Silicon Valley, obviously, and I mean, I think ultimately its lasting legacy is probably that it just gave us the star that is Kumail and Johnny, obviously. Also raised the profile of Zach Woods, TJ Miller, Jimmy O Yang, right? Like there's just, and of course Martin Starr, who was a child star before.
Middle ditch, bro.
I don't know about Middleditch, you know, like I mean, he's actually a very successful guy now. He's in a lot of stuff. I think what's your favorite thing he's been in apart from Silicon Valley? Like he was in Godzilla 2, big deal. No one really cared. He was kind of funny in Zombieland too, but like he hasn't had a great like moment apart from like his Verizon commercials, apart from the show, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Wasn't he in that movie? Like Christmas Party or something like that, or Holiday Party,
Office Christmas Party.
Yeah. I think he was in that. I didn't see that, obviously, so maybe that was it. I don't know. Not a good sign for Mr. Middleditch.
Yeah, I can't even find anything to think of it, but
that's fine.
I mean, do you have a favorite moment on the show?
Oh yeah, the best moment on the show of all time is the jerking off the dicks.
Yeah,
I mean,
mean jerk time.
Yep. That's by far the moments, like lasting legacy in terms of moments. That first two, like the first season is just every episode is straight fire. The dynamic in the crew, it's fantastic. They really were never able to recapture that totally after the first season.
Right. Yeah. What you really need is dick to floor. We'll call that D2F. I mean, I just watched it today. I think the mean jerk time scene is one of the funniest scenes in television history. I don't think that's hyperbole at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was also the height of the show. And that was several years ago now.
Yeah, it's crazy because that's the end of season 1, I believe.
Is that season 1?
Yeah. Fuck. I'm pretty sure.
2014 or 13 then? 15?
I mean,
I don't know. A while ago.
There were definitely a lot of really good moments. I'm trying to remember what his name is, the crazy rich guy who kind of pops in and out.
Russ Hanneman?
Yes, Russ. He's great.
He had some good moments this season, but again, like towards the end, seeing Russ pop back up just for no real reason, just because we have this actor in the ensemble, we need to get him back in there. You know, it's just narratively it was hard to get invested when the same mistakes and resolutions kept happening. But yeah,
you know what I think really kind of derailed the show, and it was never able to totally get back on track with, was when I'm trying to find what his name was, but the first person who was investing in them, that actor died.
Right. Yes.
And hold on, I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah. But Lori used to work for him.
Yeah, it was. This is great radio right now. He's such a really weird guy. Bertram Guilford. No, Dinesh Peter. Christopher Welch.
Yeah.
Peter Gregory.
Yes.
And when he passed away, after I think it was the second season, they really weren't able to, I think, fill that role effectively, because he brought such a weird but funny presence to the show, and embodied like the strangeness of tech, but also he was still kind of like a sweet guy. And they tried to like recapture that with Monica's boss,
Lori.
Yeah, Lori, and she just, I feel like, never really caught on the same way. And then they kind of tried to like rebrand her with like trying to be friends with Monica, or kind of being friends with Monica. Monica was her best friend, even though Monica wasn't aware of this. And it just never really fit.
She's back in the new season too, in case you're wondering.
And I think that kind of just led Richard to become like a character that people just didn't like. I didn't like Richard at all. And
nope.
When with a show like this, it's not like a show like Succession where you could hate all the characters and keep going. Like if you hate the characters in this, you're just gonna be like, I don't need this. Like it's not a top tier comedy, at least after like the second or third season. I feel like it wasn't in anyone's like top 10 list of the year or anything like that. So you really need to make the show like sweet and something that was, I think, hitting on more cylinders than just being funny, and never really found that footing again, which is too bad.
Yeah. But skewering tech culture, we can still get more of that. And that's probably tonally, that was probably the best thing about the show.
For
and
sure.
definitely looking forward to seeing more of that in the future.
Yeah, there's definitely a space for that, especially when if you anyone that's been following the pod, Dave and I both had Social Network in our top 10 for that exact reason, that it's an incredibly relevant topic and a really well made movie. So
Right.
this topic, people want to hear about it. They just maybe need to find a different way to do it. But in talking about things that you need to find a different way to do, I need to find a different way to get to see all these movies that you see, Dave, because Honey Boy is out, and I've been wanting to see the Shia LaBeouf's autobiographical film starring himself and a couple of actors playing a younger version of himself. He plays his father. How was this movie? Because I've been looking forward to it, but also I feel like all the ads and all the trailers I've seen for it kind of leave me with a very like inquisitive feeling, like what's actually going on here.
Yeah, so Honey Boy is directed by Alma Hariel, who this is her directorial debut. She did a lot of music video work in the past, and it's based off a screenplay that Shia wrote in 2017 when he was in rehab. And it's an autobiographical story about Shia when he's like, I don't know, 10, 11, 12-ish range. Obviously a child actor at that time, and his relationship with his abusive father, who Shia plays in the movie. And young Shia is played by Noah Jupe, who we just saw in Ford vs. Ferrari as Ken Miles' son. And 20-something Shia, who's in rehab. And it's kind of the framing device for the movie because Lucas Hedges starts writing the screenplay. He's playing, of course, 20-something-year-old Shia. And it was not exactly what I expected. Like, I knew all like the behind the scenes of it all going in. I knew it was autobiographical, right? But when I watched it, it was kind of interesting just because I ultimately was left a little cold to the themes of the movie because it's ultimately a very therapeutic story that Shia literally was writing for the betterment of himself, right? And it seems to be he's in a much better space now. Obviously, he had a lot of substance abuse and emotional issues throughout his adulthood. So we're hoping that's a Turner's really been turned. But it ultimately felt like that therapy was much more harder to grasp and is inaccessible for the viewer. So it was kind of just a strange film to me. But there are some things you can latch on to, one of which is the performance from Shia himself. Again, playing his dad, who's a abusive, belittling figure to young Shia, who's called Otis in the movie. Really mean to Otis, but also really like empathetic to him. And you learn throughout the story that's because Otis's dad was a failure in show business himself, and kind of has this bearing resentment that he kind of takes out on his son, who's supporting him. Basically, Otis is paying his dad to be his guardian. He doesn't have to do it, but he's doing it because he likes his dad.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's tough. There's a lot of heavy scenes, and I don't know if we get the whole other side of it. There's some really warm moments too, notably Otis's relationship with someone else in the hotel complex he lives. It's like a young woman played by FKA Twigs, of all people. And they have some really good scenes, but it's a little hazy on what they mean. Natasha Lyonne plays the mom in the story, but we never actually see her, just hear her over the phone. Or when I saw the credits again, I was like, where the fuck was Natasha Lyonne? I did not notice her at all. And then I was like, oh, wait, it's the voice. Got it. So
this
yeah,
movie sounds like every hipster's like wet dream. You have Shia LaBeouf, a screenplay, also starring in it. You have FKA Twigs, Natasha Lyonne. Like, who else is going to be in this day? Like, well, how much more Brooklyn can we get at this point?
well, that's the thing too, because you would say that and you'd think like, oh, this will be like really A24, right? There'll be all this striking cinematography and these cool use of colors. You really don't have that at all. It's kind of much more muted, partly because a lot of the settings are kind of dull. But yeah, it left me a little cold as far as a full movie, but I still think it's good. And the performances across the board are strong. So I think if you're interested in anything about it, it's worth it. But I think maybe if we had lost the framing with Lucas Hedges and it was just solely about Otis and his dad and not future Otis reflecting on his young self, if we had maybe been able to understand that as the viewer on our own, not literally have that told to us, I think that'd be better. But again, this is really, I think, Shia's really first foray into screenwriting. It's still a impressive effort. So unfortunately, no one's seeing this movie. It's made like $2 million. Another Amazon Studios flop at the box office. We keep talking about them.
Yeah, poor Amazon Studios, putting out good stuff, maybe not great stuff, but good stuff that should be seen more. Something else, I'm not sure how it's doing at the box office. Dark Waters, how is that doing right now?
Dark Waters is doing, I think, around the same.
That's what I figured.
Dark Waters is interesting because this is actually the first Todd Haynes movie that's any kind of studio release. Todd Haynes, of course, is famous for kind of coming up in that new independent cinema wave in the late 80s, early 90s, alongside like Soderbergh, of course, and also Gus Van Sant. But while Soderbergh, of course, got a little more mainstream, of course, made Ocean's trilogy and all that, Todd Haynes really kind of stuck to the beat of his own drum. He's a filmmaker that I was not really familiar with for a long time just because he didn't make anything mainstream. But, as you look back, you realize he's definitely a figure of like queer cinema. Movies like Poison and, of course, Carol, which came out in 2015. You'll see that on lots of best of decade lists this month. Definitely a widely celebrated film with Rooney Mara and Cate Blanchett. And he had Wonderstruck come out for Amazon in 2017, but now he's back with Dark Waters, which is funny because I've seen a lot of people that are more familiar with his filmography describe it as the least Todd Haynes movie he's ever made because, again, it's out with focus more, but it's a legal drama. It's not it's a much more straightforward movie than from what I've gathered the rest of his filmography is. But I like Dark Waters a lot because I think it's just an incredibly effective story. And for those of you, it's not going to really spoil it, but it is history. It's based off this Nathaniel Rich, a 2016 New York Times Magazine article. And it's about this lawyer, Robert Belote, played by Mark Ruffalo, who basically just went to town in court against DuPont, the chemical company. Of course, Jeff Gordon car, everyone knows the logo. And just took all these suits over like 15 years against DuPont for poisoning the local community in Parkersburg, West Virginia, and subsequently poisoning basically the whole country through the use of PFOAs, this kind of synthetic chemical that is in Teflon or was in Teflon. And, Ruffalo, of course, is the lead. He's in just about every scene. He's quite good in it. It's he gets to say a bunch of they knews.
I was going to ask.
Oh, this is in the they knew genre. This is not to the high levels of Spotlight. Spotlight definitely is much bigger and grander than this. But I think Dark Waters, if you like that kind of stuff from Ruffalo, this is it. Like, they knew and they did nothing. Like this is it. Like he literally says they knew twice in the movie, and I was like, this is exactly what I wanted though, because the rest of the movie is so smart, and I think Todd's so strong that you can get something so meta in there, And I wonder if Todd Haynes is like acknowledge that. I haven't been able to find any acknowledgement of it, but along the way you have Anne Hathaway, who plays the wife figure. Where I think what's smart about Dark Waters is that as Ruffalo's character is getting consumed by this case that is taking years and years, we're seeing the effect it has on his family and how he's really just focused solely on the case and little else. And Hathaway's kind of representing that. Still kind of an underwritten part, but Anne Hathaway's quite good, so she can, I think, elevate that. Tim Robbins plays his boss at his firm. And then we have Victor Garber, who plays the executive head of DuPont. And then Bill Camp, who is awesome in this, plays the farmer who kind of brings the case to Ruffalo in the first place when his cows are dying from like tumors and shit from the chemicals. And ultimately, I think what makes the movie so good is like you can kind of, if you look up the story, you can kind of guess how it'll be told, right? But Dark Water does such a good job of making your blood boil, and also just hammering home the corporate indifference that we've unfortunately come to expect here in our country, and negligence when it comes to the environment and stuff like that. And it's really just a really sobering story and really unfortunate stuff. But as far as legal drama goes, I think it's really good. So yeah, Dark Waters. If that's something you're into, I'd recommend it. Or if you're just interested in the story, I'd say go on Wikipedia and then be really mad. But it's good stuff.
They knew. Man, that's great. Ruffalo just being ridiculous is always fantastic. Definitely something I want to check out. But I was fortunate enough to get to see Parasite finally. Bong Joon-ho's modern masterpiece.
Damn right.
You had it in your top 15, top 10. Jeez, for
8,
the decade, which is saying a lot for a movie that just came out. And you were like, yeah, I want to put this lower only because I haven't had the time to really reflect on this and see if it has the lasting impact. But I think you're in your words, I'm happy to move it up higher. So this is, I think to say the least, definitely a modern classic and masterpiece. And the fact that we might in back-to-back years have a foreign film nominated for Best Picture is pretty remarkable, because this film deserves it. So I made it to a 4:15 showing on a Friday, and it's been out for a while now.
Yeah, I saw it in October.
Yeah, and so this is 2 months later. I went in, and the theater was pretty much packed. I'd say 3/4 of the way packed. Now, I wasn't like a small theater, but I'd say there probably was about 100 people there. Wow. And it probably helps that it's near a lot of old people. So the crowd was mostly old people, but still, people are coming to see this movie. And I left that theater with my girlfriend, and we talked about it for the next 3 hours. Like, we got dinner, we chatted about it, and it's a perfect film, I think, to see on a date with somebody, because all you want to do afterwards is talk about all the different themes, the metaphors. Every single frame of this is just so precise. You've talked ad nauseum in our review, and then in our all decade pod for best movies, about how Bong Joon-ho, he doesn't film anything besides what he needs. Yep. And he is so precise and puts so much thought into every single piece of this film. It's truly just a feat of filmmaking, and I think of writing too, which this did just receive a best screenplay nod at the Golden Globes, or whatever that's worth. Hopefully a good sign for the Oscars. Yeah, you've talked a lot about it. Now we get a chance to dig in a little deeper. What did you want to talk about when you reviewed that you thought maybe would be a good place to dig in here?
Yeah, so when you start watching Parasite, and once the son engenders himself to this wealthy family and kind of gets scams his way in, right? Shout out TJX6 scam gang. But then he realizes he's going to do with his whole family. And then you watch that in amazing detail, how that comes to be. Like, oh wait, the family's all here. Fuck, this is wild, right? Take down the man, right? Fuck the rich kind of shit. And it's awesome. It's so thrilling the whole time. And you're like, oh, the parasites, I get it. And then you realize there's literally parasites in the fucking basement.
Yep.
And it completely plays off of that initial understanding of the title. And it continues to be just as thrilling. Like, it just fucking blew my mind.
Yeah. From that moment when they're all there together and then they go into the basement, when the old housekeeper shows up, it goes from being this movie where you're just kind of like, oh, this is really interesting, like these schemers, plotters, and then it becomes something totally different, and there's so many more layers to everything that's going on, and it starts being such a commentary on class, on wealth, the corruption that wealth has on people, as well as I think the patterns that people are engendered to based on their own classism. I also thought, I thought it was really funny at parts.
Oh,
And it was,
God, yeah.
oh my God. It was today I went into work talking with my coworker, and I was telling him I saw this movie, and they were like, so how would you describe it? And it was funny because the first thing I said was, it's very metaphorical. And I was like, oh, fuck. Like, that's what the guy says in the movie. But that's exactly what the word I would use to describe this is that there's so many metaphors at play. There's so much meaning packed into this movie. Yeah. And I've been debating it with, anyone I know that's seen this, like our interpretations of it. And I think that's what elevates this movie so much. Is it goes from being just a really well-made movie to one that you just want to dissect, which is funny to talk about a Parasite in that sense. But yeah, it's really amazing. It's definitely going to be top 3 for me for this year, for sure. Not sure if it'll be number 1, but it's up there.
Yeah, I mean, I loved Song Kang-ho. He plays the dad.
Yeah,
he's a regular in almost all of Bong's movies. He's incredible in this. And, you spoke about your theater being packed. This movie's coming up on $20 million here in the States, already over 100 overseas. It's really impressive to see a foreign language movie actually do this well here, which is awesome to see.
Absolutely.
Again, ultimately, it's a movie with it's in Korean with subtitles, and it's long. That's inherently not for everyone. But I've really yet to meet anyone who's actually seen it that isn't gushing with praise. And even just the filmmaking aspects, we've, I think, stated well enough that Bong's very precise with his scene construction. But there's also just amazing shots in general. Like I remember the race home in the rain.
Oh my God.
Where I don't know if that was on a drone or what, but when we're kind of like far away in that valley and they're running down the hill, it almost reminds you of some like landscape, like video game action, the way characters are platforming or something. That blew my mind. But the tension is really maintained the whole time. I think the way the shots are lined up really helps that. And funny enough, I mean, that was not a real house. The house was just a series of 2 sets, but you would not know it watching the movie.
No.
Yeah, man. I mean, fuck. It's something that like I feel like as soon as people see it, it kind of like consumes their thoughts for like the next day, Yeah. Just because now I want to watch it again, knowing what happened, just so I can really just lock in on everything else. Because the first time you watch it, once the reveal happens, and I think you're just kind of on the roller coaster at that point. Because again, it's a black comedy, but it's also a thriller.
Yeah.
So yeah. Really not enough good things to say.
And it is thrilling for sure. One part I wanted to debate with you, because I was having this discussion with my girlfriend, or fiance now. We were talking about at the end when spoilers at this point. If you're watching and haven't watched Parasite, I'd say turn it off. Come back when you can. When they're at that party at the end, and the parasite from the basement has been stabbed with the shish kebab sword,
Right.
And the rich dad is reaching down for the keys, and he's like doing the smell. Well, how do you think, or what do you think was going through the poor dad's mind? What do you think? Was he offended because he smelled just like this other person smelled that he thought was lower than him? Did you take that as he was like angry with the dad for not being able to get his own hands dirty? Like, I've seen a lot of interpretations of that.
Huh. I hadn't noticed the smell part. When I think I just read that as he saw the true classism and knew that they would never be accepted. And when you literally seeing that, where like this rich guy doesn't want to save this poor person, he's only worried about saving his own next of kin who happens to be wealthy. I think that's what I saw there.
Yeah.
But again, I like to see it again, just so now that I have the action tracked in my mind, I can just kind of focus more on the themes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that was a scene that was being examined that way.
Yeah, well, it may not be. That was something I was definitely debating, and I was left thinking about a lot, just because that scene also, there's so much heaviness too, with how the poor dad and the rich dad are talking about love in relationships, and
Right.
kind of how that plays out, between the two classes, I guess, is the commentary. There's just so much to dig into. I feel like we could do like a whole hour-long podcast just dissecting this movie, and who knows, maybe in the future we will. But um, we also have another great movie to talk about that was released on Netflix this past Friday. Go see Parasite, and also go watch Marriage Story. Dave already gave a non-spoiler review about Noah Baumbach's most recent film. Just received a bunch of nominations at the Golden Globes. Both Driver and ScarJo received nominations, as well as the movie for Best Picture. Yeah. Marriage Story. I thought this was fantastic. Driver is amazing in this. You know what I think I liked most about this film is, so it's about, Charlie, who's this up and coming theater director in New York City, and this felt a lot like
I'd say established. He's pretty successful.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, he receives this huge grant and award, and being called a genius for his work. It felt like a play in a lot of parts. Whether it was Scarlett Johansson walking around Laura Dern's office doing a monologue about what, their marriage and how she lost herself within it, or the court scene between Laura Dern and Ray Liotta, or even the big fight felt like something that could have happened in a film, maybe or in a theater performance. It wasn't played up to the same effect I feel like it would have been in person, but still, like punching the wall and Driver breaking down into tears, man, all incredibly effective. And I thought that this was just fantastic. And that final scene where he's sitting with his son and he finally reads the letter from the beginning, when Adam Driver gets that lump in his throat and that lip quiver, man, it hit me. Like it got me. I was so sad at that point. There were definitely some real dusties flying around the Sheehan household over here. Now that you get to talk spoilers on the pod, Dave, what stood out to you? And let's dig in a little bit more into this.
Yeah. So I saw it about a month and a few days ago now at the Independent Film Fest in Boston. And yeah, check the spoiler review out if you want. But yeah, man, not a big Noah Baumbach guy. Just haven't seen a lot of his films. Talked about that before. But I kind of knew the vibe he's had a reputation to have anyway. And I've seen some people say that he kind of makes the same movie every time. And if that's the case, it feels like this is the best one. This or Frances Ha, it seems, are pretty universally being held up. When they have that fight, like when ScarJo and Driver finally have really just let out, because they've just been growing apart throughout the whole movie. And ScarJo's character is the one who's much more invested in desiring of the split. Mm-hmm. And Driver hasn't yet come to terms with why that is. When they have that fight, and like the whole time too, I said before, I think this is Scarlett's best performance. And it's funny because a lot of the discourse around this movie has been that it's ultimately about Driver's character. And he certainly is in more scenes and he has more lines. But I think it's incredibly fair to both perspectives in the story. So I don't really see that as a negative. I think ultimately they had to pick someone to lead with. And again, there's some autobiographical nature to this with Baumbach, so you really can't blame him for writing it this way.
Right.
But when they had that fight, and like, man, they're just tearing into each other, and like the whole, like you mentioned, there's sniffles in the movie. There's sniffles before this scene. In general, I think you're at this point, the audience is incredibly invested in the storytelling because the performance is so strong. There's scenes of amazing humor and also incredible dread, bookending each other throughout the screenplay. It's impressive script. When you have that fight scene and like really just laying into each other, and you're just like, man, not only is this over, but I want it to be over too.
Yeah.
And like
Yep.
like Driver, like we've espoused praise for him for a while the past few weeks, but like when he just goes full Kylo and he's like, I wish you would die. And
Yeah.
it's like, holy shit. And like he
Yeah.
slams the wall and you're just like, good grief. This is fucking dark.
Yeah, man. I think I literally just went, ooh, yikes. Like when he ended, both of my girlfriend and I were sitting there, we like looked at each other, we're like, ooh. Went a little too far. But then you see him like break down like immediately, you know, and you see that he's not this like this monster who's saying this thing. He's this person who's been,
they call each other honey like the next day, you know?
Yep. Yeah, he's been totally emotionally destroyed. And you know, in one sense, I've been seeing this a lot starting to be called a like a divorce court drama, you know, or procedural in a sense, to kind of give everybody the feel of like what it goes through. But
so much more than that.
Yeah, it is so much more than that. And I think where I really connect with the movie is just like the devastation of like giving yourself to another person, and how you can get so far down the line with something before you start to like recognize like, oh, I'm in way too deep to this, or I've gotten to a place I don't want to go, and how do I get myself back out of here? Or this person is getting themselves out, I don't want them to get out, and like how do I reconcile that this person who felt like such a part of me is now apart from me? Just really, it was heavy, but also funny. Like Merritt Weaver,
awesome.
Yeah, fantastic. And the scene where she serves him is maybe the funniest scene of the year. I mean, goddamn, when she goes into that weird voice accent, and he's like, he starts echoing back, and he's like, oh, what is this? And she's like, hold on, let's try this again. I was just dying laughing.
What is she talking about? Like a pie or something too? Or what is it, like a cake? I forget. Oh God. So good.
It was fantastic and just done so well.
You're serving me divorce papers?
Yeah. You're getting a divorce. Okay. She like runs out of the room. Yeah. And also, you know, it ends in a very sweet way, which I think is like, if this didn't end in a sweet way, if this just kind of left it like devastated, I probably wouldn't feel the same way. I think the ending works really well for me because it leaves with the idea of hope, which you're sitting with this crumbling relationship, and really I think feeling very like frustrated with both characters at different points. Like the whole time, you know, a Driver's character Charlie is trying to get Nicole, played by ScarJo, to just talk, and she just won't. You know, the lawyers say it's better if we don't, and then she finally comes around to talk, and that's when they have this huge fight. And it feels like things could have just been avoided if they talked. Whereas then you find out, you know, Driver was cheating on her, and was no saint himself within all this, and there's issues all around. So to end it on a sweet note and that there's some hope, I think really helps me leave with like a sweet taste in my mouth, and also just feeling like this movie touches on a lot of different themes, but doesn't ultimately leave you feeling like wrecked, which it certainly could have.
Right. I saw some like people that were less warm on the movie saying that they would have preferred if it was more focused on the legal stuff before, as you said. Mm-hmm. It was notably with Laura Dern, Ray Liotta, and Alan Alda, you really have three memorable performances that really kind of perk up the movie in like Act 2.
Yeah.
But again, I just, unless you just totally did not connect with those emotional beats at the start, I don't see how you want the focus to shift like that. Because again, I think from scene one, when they're at the mediator meeting and reading the letter about what they like about each other, and then you're like, oh wait, but they're getting divorced. Like, if that isn't hook, line, and sinker, I just don't know why that wouldn't work on someone.
Yeah, you know, I think that just speaks to how good Alda, Liotta, and Dern are, and especially right. I want to see Liotta and Dern go up against each other more, because that scene, almost more than the actual fight scene, was just hard to watch. How they're both like staring at the table and just like throwing more and more mud across the aisle at each other, but through their lawyers, and how like disengaged they were, but then Leota and Dern are so like on their A game. It's really great scene. Just I think that's the thing I keep coming back to is how it's scene after scene after scene where I'm like, oh, that was great. Oh, that was fantastic. I really love how they did that there.
That's why I think the script is really one of the true standouts too, just because the way it constructs a story the whole time. It's not only really engaging, but I think just the way you can juggle all those emotional beats the whole time, taking you scene to scene, works really well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, these two films, Parasite and Marriage Story, certainly up there for best of the year. I'm excited to see 1917 and Little Women and kind of round out that list. And obviously Star Wars, I don't know if it'll make it on, but just a lot of really good film. And
yes, sir.
Yeah, just a good year in movies in general. Maybe we should wrap up there because I feel like we could go on for a while more, and we've been going on for long enough. What should the people be watching for next week, Dave?
Well, Marvel's Mrs. Maisel season 3 is already out. We'll be talking about that next week. The Watchmen finale comes out on Sunday.
Give me that big blue schlong.
Hell yeah, bro. Six Underground, Michael Bay's Netflix movie with Ryan Reynolds comes out on Friday. That trailer looks Michael Bay as hell. I'm in. Let's
Michael
go.
Bay as hell is the right way to describe it.
Richard Jewell, the Clint Eastwood movie with Paul Walter Hauser. That comes out this weekend. So does Jumanji too. But I think that's a lot of things to watch right there. Yeah. And then on the music front, we got Harry Styles, Fine Line, Stormzy, second album, hot off of Glastonbury headlining.
Yeah, dog.
Also, the Free Nationals, Anderson .Paak's live band is dropping their debut album.
Nice.
That lead single that had the first posthumous Mac Miller appearance. So
great.
That's a lot of stuff. And we'll be talking about our best television of the decade in short order as well. So subscribe and stay tuned, please.
Yeah, hit that subscribe. Go to soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod to find out all the ways to follow the podcast. And if you're watching on YouTube, just press that subscribe button. Just do it. We appreciate you. We'll see you all next week. Peace out.